Okay, hi. Thank you for coming to this panel. This is about creating your own webcomic and how to actually stick with it because it is an investment. So a little bit about me. My name is Kaela. I'm a ComArts alum. I graduated in 2021. I work at VCU, but I'm also an MFA candidate in the creative writing program, and I'm also a comic artist. For the past almost 3 years, I've been working on a webcomic called Strange Taste, which I've also serialized into traditional comics, which I am selling over there. Um, yeah, so I had this idea for a comic my freshman year of ComArts. I didn't really have much beyond, I was just asked to draw two random characters, and I drew these, and it just went from there. So it is a pretty long comic. I've posted it to Webtoon, where it got a bit of traction. I was featured for a few weeks, a few months. And I'll show you more about what that means in a second. Yeah, I basically, if you've heard of Webtoons, yeah, this was like the main platform that I published on. Um, Their Webtoon is known for like it's kind of like vertical scrolling comics where instead of having it like traditionally set up like this, oh my gosh, more people, this is awesome. Um, Instead of having it like in a more traditional on the page sort of way, you would be scrolling and you'd usually just have like one image um, at a time. I published there starting in July of 2022, and then I recently finished in March of 2024. I always was kind of hoping to make it a traditional comic. So these are just like some of the pages that I have within the first volume. The way that I did it was I would design the pages like this first, and then I would select each panel and just have it in the vertical scroll format. Yeah, this was like it was a really large project. It was around 60 or so chapters when it was put in the vertical scroll format, and then it's about 500 pages traditionally. Yeah, it was a lot of work, and I'll go more into like how you can like keep a schedule and like what the kind of process is later. But first, I want to talk about webcomic publishing platforms. So there are a lot that you can choose from if you have a webcomic and you're not sure where to put it out to like get any eyes. The one that I got the most success with was Webtoon. You probably know about Webtoon. It is a South Korean company that's gotten very popular in America. If you've read Lore Olympus, True Beauty, those are probably two of the most popular comics on there that were also started as webcomics and ended up being published as traditional comics. So the pros of Webtoon is it's by far the largest online comic publishing platform. You are more likely to find an audience here, even though it is like a bit oversaturated. There are a lot of people posting because anyone can post onto Webtoon Canvas, which is like the more community part of the platform. But because of that, there are more readers coming in. Since I started posting on Webtoon, I obviously don't anymore since I've finished the comic, but they've made it a lot easier for people to find your work. You can sort by genre, you can sort by when it came out, and there, I mentioned earlier, there's like a featured list. I was featured maybe like 8 or 9 times on Webtoon, and that's where the employees of the website, they like go through all these comics and they pick a few that each week that they would like to highlight, and that always really helps your visibility. So they have like recommended series. They're the weekly hot. There's like the hidden gems portion where if you have under 1,000 subscribers, they're more likely to pick you out and platform you there. So those are the pros of Webtoons. The cons, I mentioned a little bit. It is a bit oversaturated. It can be hard for people to find you. It is getting easier. And if you decide that you want to be making more money off of Webtoon, so like I mentioned, the community part is Webtoon Canvas, but there's also Webtoon Originals. The way that they have these originals, which are the ones that like they're contracted by Webtoon. So you would like actually be, contracted making money. They choose Canvas comics from those, and you can decide if they give you an offer, if you would like to work with them as a partner. And there are pros to that because it is in a way stable income, but it is also like a huge demand. And I mean, with anything, you should be reading a contract before you go through it. I never got to that point. I didn't really post for that long in the grand scheme of things. There are comics on there that like last for decades. But if you have a webcomic, and you want to post it somewhere, I do think Webtoon is probably your best starting place. Okay, yeah, here is me featured a couple of different times, both on the Hidden Gems page, and then also sometimes they make collections. So if they're doing like a theme, mine was featured in like the Epic Adventures theme like a year ago or so. Yeah, so another platform you can use is Tapas. This one is probably the second biggest publishing platform. Their thing is they like bite-sized stories, so they like comics that really short and you can read in like under 5 minutes each installment. Pros about Tapas, it is a big community of artists. So whereas in Webtoon there are a lot of people who are just readers, in Tapas you're probably going to be read by another artist, which is good and bad. Good because artists know how much work you're putting into this, and having that network of artists can be like a really great tool. But also bad because you're not really reaching exactly the fan base that you want all of the time. It's a bit more tricky. Um, it There are great forums that you can use on Tapas where you can speak to other artists if you have questions about your series. But it is, I would say, significantly smaller than Webtoon. There is nothing stopping you from publishing to both or one or more, just saying. So if you can, you should post to all. And then another kind of newer one that I really like is Global Comics. This one is cool because you don't just have to post that like vertical scroll format. If you are more of like a traditionalist, and you have these like traditional pages, you're also able to upload those. It basically gives you more customization. It lets you choose which way you would like to present them more. It is small, but it is growing. It is pretty easy to get featured if you post consistently. I've been on the front page a few times. But yeah, definitely like a much smaller reader base as it is right now from Webtoon. And then there's Reddit. If you have like, I would recommend if you have like shorter, maybe like 4-panel comics and stuff like that, the comics subreddit, and there are a couple of other ones are really, really good for that. So you can also post to your own website. This one's great because you can basically do whatever you want. You are not in the bounds of like the dimensions for like, so Webtoon, it's like everything has to be 800 pixels wide, which is not very big, and it can hinder some artistic sensibilities. So with your own website, you've got complete creative control. The cons is that it is very hard to find you if you're not already a super established artist, if you just have your own website. But that is what self-promotion is for, which I will get to later. I thought that was after this. But yeah, okay. So the most important thing about posting a comic online, if you have a webcomic, is consistency. The way that these algorithms and these people who work for these webcomic companies work is if they see you publishing consistently, they are more likely to put more stock in you because they know that you're not just going to stop posting, disappear off of the earth one day, and that you are like a good investment. So this doesn't mean that you have to be posting every day. You should not be posting every day unless you have like an insane amount of backlog work already. But so with my webcomic, I posted on Mondays at 6 p.m. every 2 weeks, so every other Monday. And even though that was a bit less frequent than a lot of the bigger webcomics that usually will update once a week, I was posting at the same time every day, so people knew when to check every day. And those returning readers would check at that same time every other week. And these companies are able to pick up on that. And that's why I got promoted as much as I was. Um, but yeah, so self promotion. This is the worst part, at least in my experience. The if you were going to be posting on an online platform, even though, like I was saying, search functions are getting better nowadays, it is really hard to make yourself known out of like a sea of all of these people who have the same ambitions and the same dream as you. So you have to really kind of stick up for yourself and really promote yourself. And that is hard. And it's especially hard now as like social media itself is kind of crumbling in the way that it used to exist. So these are just three that I have posted to that I can attest to. I don't use Twitter, but I don't think I don't know how many people use Twitter anymore. But that is like one place that a lot of artists, like comic artists, like to use. Instagram is okay. I would always post on Instagram like work in progress or like a little snippet of what was about to come or like update when chapters were going to be updated. Um, Reddit, I would do kind of the same thing. I would stick to those webcomic subreddits and just like let them know like once things were updated, if things were featured, if like there was any big change happening, like any big like plot line or any like huge promotion that I had gotten. And then TikTok is probably honestly your best bet. Their algorithm is like way better than basically anything else, and it will find the people that you want. But it's the same thing. You kind of have to be posting consistently, and you like be following trends, and like making a video is much harder than having like a static image like you could on Reddit or Instagram or Twitter. But I did find it was much easier to get eyeballs with TikTok. Um, and yeah, so now the fun part, like actually talking about developing your idea. So there's like kind of this big question of if you have this huge webcomic idea where there's like a lot of plot involved, and you have this whole story kind of planned out in your mind, do you plan everything out first? Do you write the scripts first? Do you have an outline first? Or do you just kind of go with the flow and like be able to get out there quicker? It really depends. I'll say in my experience, I am usually a planner. I spent like a year in sort of pre-production, which is where you're um, planning out like your characters and your plot lines and what you want to happen. And then I got really antsy and I made one chapter, like I illustrated it, I had written it, I knew kind of where it was going, not really. And then I just went for it and I started posting and I started keeping that schedule like once every other Monday. And honestly, there's pros and cons to both, but it was I did actually like that method of kind of just jumping out and like getting in there. One, because I feel like if I hadn't done that, I would have been just waiting for years, like waiting until I felt like my art was ready, or waiting until I felt like my writing was good enough, or if like my pacing was okay, or any of that. And like that is something that I feel like us as artists get caught up in a lot. You never really feel like you're at the level that you want to be, and you don't want to show yourself until you find yourself at that level. But what I found was, since I like just kind of jumped in and started posting. One, I had my stuff up there sooner. It gave me more time to cultivate an audience. Two, I was able to get feedback right away, which is a cool thing about posting stuff online. You're not just working on the story forever and then sending it out to publishers and then only just then getting feedback. You are getting feedback as you create, which is a bit of a double-edged sword. But I was hearing, so I have this like side character in my story that I didn't really have too much stock in, and then I was getting all these comments that she was their favorite character, and I ended up kind of amending the story, going in a bit more into her story, and it sort of changed the entire outcome, and it's something that I'm like actually really really happy with. So I wouldn't be like, if you are a planner, that's great, but you can also just feel free to like go with the punches, like roll with the changes. Like if you have this grand, like huge idea, chances are your like artistic and writing sensibilities are not going to be the same starting from when you started to 2 years down the line. They definitely weren't for me. Um, so that's just something to think about. Um, yeah, so sticking with it, it is really, really hard. And like, it is one thing to make one piece of art that you're working on for a while and then publish it and be done with it. But it's another thing to be working on several drawings every installment and have like 50 plus of those. That is like a huge work. And people don't really understand that because there are so many comics out there and there are so many things at the internet, on the internet, but like there are teams behind them. When it's just you, or if you're an artist and you're working with a writer or vice versa, that is so much more work. Um, but like I said, consistency is key, and sticking with it is really really important. Um, what I did was I would have a schedule where basically every day I would know, like, I wanted to get these many panels done, or I wanted to write this much this day. And that always changes. Like, it is really hard to make a to-do list every day and get all of it done every day unless you have like an incredible work ethic, which I don't. But I was still able to get that out at the same time. One, for the motivation of like, I know if I post this consistently, if I post it at 6 p.m. every other Monday, it's more likely to get viewership, it's more likely to get attention from the platform, and it'll be done and I won't fall behind. But also a really good strategy is, and Webtoon will recommend this when you're uploading your first thing, um, having a backlog is good. I know I said like just go in and start posting. That's what I did, and I honestly like don't advise against that. But if you have like 3 chapters ready to go, you can post one and then wait however much time you want to and have the other, but still be working on new stuff in the meantime. So if you're coming down to that deadline, you still have a bit of a buffer. But yeah, I think like a good thing is to just check in with yourself, check in with other artists, like hold yourself accountable. Just know that like even though you probably won't get a lot of traction for those first few months with those first few chapters, if you keep posting consistently, you're either going to find the readership you want, or you are going to, like, either way, you are going to grow and improve as an artist and a writer. And that's just a great reward in itself. Um, so, yeah, I would, if you ever feel like you want to give up or that things are getting really, really hard, it is going to feel like that at some points. That's the life that we have chosen. But yeah, just having a community of artists is great for that, even if it's not here at VCU or wherever you have your community. Um, having that community online where you have readers and you have people who are coming in and tuning in every week, or like there are like comics that you like to tune into every week. That's a community in itself. And I've made so many friends who have been going on the same journey with me with their own work, and holding each other accountable and like cheering each other on is such like an important part of sticking with it. So yeah, beyond the internet, after I had made 100 or so pages of my webcomic, I wanted to go ahead and publish the first volume of my comic. I ended up doing this 3 times. There are 3 in this complete series. I did Kickstarters. So that's like, I'm sure you know, it's a crowdfunding website. I was very, very nervous because, again, like I did not have a huge platform starting and I wasn't sure who was going to find me through Kickstarter. Kickstarter is great because there are people on there who go on there and they just kind of want to give money to creators. So I had help with a professor for this one. I ran 3 successful campaigns for this comic specifically. I've done a few other Kickstarters for other shorter comics. But yeah, I made, I'm not going to show the video because I have like a really embarrassing haircut. Um, but yeah, I made a video, just like a little bit of a trailer about my comic. I talked about it being on Webtoon. I know that like if you are giving comics out for free on the internet, you may not feel like if you mention that people are going to want to buy it. But there are people who, I mean, all of us are here. We really love comics, and people who really want to read it and can't afford it, they will, and they have. So yeah, I did like a bit of a story. I included some of the pages. I talked about my writing process on Webtoon, how long I had been posting on it. And then I also included some merchandise, so like some quick prints and some quick stickers that I printed out. I offered, there are different tiers you can get on Kickstarter. So like the more you pay, the more you get. So people could get the book. They could also get a PDF of the book, like in the traditional format. They could get prints, they could get stickers, they could get commissions. And that was fun. That was successful, but that was a lot of work. You need to be ready to ship things. You need to be ready to do all that. But yeah, I ended up printing 3 comics. That is the entire series. It's a little over 500 pages combined. So I'm tabling here today. I tabled at NecoCon last weekend as an author. Versus an artist. It was kind of crazy. But yeah, I just do basically the whole like DMV convention circuit. And I've been able to like sell my comics there. And even though they're like original work and it's really scary to like put yourself out there as an artist selling original work, there is an audience out there, even if it's not online, even if it's in person, there is an audience out there. And really all you have to do is apply yourself and put yourself out there, and like don't wait for when you think the perfect moment is, because chances are that's never going to come. There is art that I've created in like the first few chapters that like I just don't draw like that anymore. And it's not up to like the par that I would put my illustration in now, but that's okay because especially people on like webcomic platforms who are like routine webcomic readers, they always talk about how they love to see improvement. They love to see artists growing and getting better. That's one of the best parts of having this like dynamic webcomic where you're like updating as you create it, is you can physically see your growth over the months or the years or however long you stick with it. So if you have a story and you like really, really want to make a webcomic, now is the time to do it. Now is the time to start planning and start drawing and start uploading. And it may not be exactly where you want it to be, but if you just keep working at it and you keep posting consistently, it will get there. And even if it doesn't, you have like that physical measure of your growth. You're able to connect with all these people, you're able to get this audience, and it's just like a really cool experience. So yeah, if does anyone have any questions? I would love to field some questions.
I know that Webtoon has like a really big bias
Mhm. I think so kind of both. It would probably be like a lot easier if you were just like searching as a reader. You would probably gravitate towards romance and drama. I didn't mention this, but yeah, you're right. So, like in Webtoon specifically, romance is like by far the most popular genre there. So you get like a bit more viewership with that. But I do think that I was featured as much as I was. So like my comic was picked out and like put on the front page a handful of times because this is like a horror sci-fi comic and that is like not super popular on Webtoon. And so you kind of have less of a hand to choose from if you are like a person working for that company. So yeah, I definitely think I was featured as much as I was because it was more of a niche. So yeah, if you like have an idea for a comic and it's not a romance, it's not a drama, and it's like not something that you think is going to be super popular with webcomic audiences, that could actually help you. So yeah, just be true to your genre. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I did the convention circuit a bit before I started getting into webcomics. So I didn't have much, but I was just, in Illustrator, I would create fan art and like a few original things. Going to places like this, like especially if you're a student, I was actually part of the Rice Committee a few years ago, and it was just like it continues to be a really great way for students and like local artists who may not have like as much resources or experiences to like go out and sell their stuff to do that. But I also like ran an Instagram for a long time. Was just posting, updating on there. Um, yeah, and like honestly, like get your friends to follow your Instagram, get your friends to follow your social media. It just there's power in numbers. But yeah, and if you're an illustrator too and you haven't started a webcomic, I would definitely encourage trying to like apply for things like this or just selling your stuff in an online shop and then promoting that online. Um, I don't know how many people I got just from my art Instagram and social media that came and read my webcomic. I feel like I definitely like the vast majority of my readership was from people who had never heard of me before and still don't follow me on Instagram for some reason. Um, but yeah, there's definitely merit into like being an illustrator first and like improving on that and getting your name out there that way in the first place.
How did you get that develop as a writer? You know, 'cause when I started, I would read back my first issue. I thought it was good when I first made it.
I am feeling that so hard right now because I'm in my first semester as a creative writing major or a creative writing graduate student. And uh, even though I love this comic and I love like all of the work that I've put into it, I heard recently that one of the people in my program read it and I was like, oh God, okay. Just because it's old and there are things that I would have done differently. But yeah, it's like one of those things too where it's like you are kind of hurting yourself if you don't start because you don't think your art is there. It's the same way with your writing. Like it's definitely good if you're an artist and not a writer and you want to get into writing. I mean, it's cliche, but it's true. Reading is great. And as a comic artist, it's even better because you can just read comics and you can read web comics and you can absorb things through like your favorite shows and stuff. I'm honestly like I love books. I'm not a huge book reader. Instead, I'm like, I love movies and I love video games and I love comics and like even watching and consuming that kind of media can like give you a lot of insight, not just into like coming up with ideas, but also like figuring out pacing and figuring out how you want to develop characters and how you want to develop your plot lines and stuff like that. Um, I mean, I would suggest too, if you're not super confident with your art or your writing yet, you don't have to like jump into this huge project. I did a few like mini comics before this. I actually had a lot of mini comics before this. My first thing on Webtoon was, I'll show it. It is old. It is not up to par with what I would want myself to do today. But I entered like a contest on Webtoon. It didn't get very popular, but like, yeah, this was the first comic-y thing that I've ever done. And okay, never mind. It's not letting me look at that. But yeah, the art wasn't great. The writing wasn't great. But it was only 5 chapters. So there's not much lost there. You can only gain from that because like you're improving yourself and you're improving your writing, you're improving your illustration. Um, yeah, there's really like no secret formula to getting better at writing. It's just you kind of have to like consume and analyze the media around you and just figure out what you like about it and what you want to bring into your own art and writing. And I'm sure that's the same for a lot of people about art because that's how I approach it as well. Cool. I think we're at about time, but this is a great turnout. Thank you guys so much for coming. Shameless plug, if I'm going to be here until 5, I'm going to be selling all 3 of these and some other stuff. If you're interested or if you just want to chat, I will be in the back. Thank you so much.